This is the discussion on unplugged violins. How loud is an unplugged violin for when I'm practicing and I want to know if I'm going to drive my neighbors crazy? Everybody's always asking us, what is the most silent violin you've got? That's what I want. I want something silent so I can practice. Silent is relative. There's no such thing as silent. There's really quiet, but silent, it's a weird thing. So we're going to learn a little bit about the physics of sound, and then we're going to play a bunch of violins. Some of them are more silent than others. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, let's look at this RTA right here, this real-time analyzer. D, decibels, we are on this is on a logarithmic scale. So something that is 80 dB is actually twice as loud as something that is 70 dB. And it's perceived loudness. All right, the other thing to notice as we're looking at this thing, you'll see at the very bottom, that scale where you see 32 and 63 and 125, those are frequencies, hertz. When you see that 63 hertz, that's down like where a kick drum is going to punch you in the chest. And then it comes up to 125 hertz, 250, 500 there. Remember that an open A string on a violin is 440 hertz. So that's going to be in that area. Let's grab a violin and let's pluck an A string. See that bar come up right there? Now there are overtones to a violin. It's not just 440 hertz. If you just punched a 440 hertz sine wave there, then you'd see that one frequency spike up and everything else would stay nice and flat, but it would also sound super synthetic. So you'll notice all of these frequencies are popping up as I'm talking, and as I'm playing, you're going to see a bunch of frequencies popping up. It's because violins have overtones to them, and that's what gives them their very distinctive tone. You're going to see that there are different strengths popping up for each one. Say if we play, let's just play an A note. That's what an A looks like on a violin, and I'm going to pull this thing down a little bit more. Acoustic violin. This is an acoustic-electric violin. This is a golden Tasman. So this is not going to be quite as loud as, say, Rachel Barton Pine's Guarneri. That thing's a cannon. So this is going to be a little quieter than a really nice acoustic violin, but obviously quite a bit louder than an electric violin. So let's just play this real quick, and let's see what sort of volume levels we can experience with this instrument. And you can see where all those frequencies are going up and down, right? So one thing also to know about frequencies is that the higher the frequency, the higher the sound, the higher the tonality of the sound, the less penetrating power it has if we're talking about going through walls. So say you live in an apartment and you're worried about disturbing your neighbors. You want to see if you're trying to get a violin that's going to have less penetrating power, it's not going to be loud for your neighbors. You want to see more high frequencies and less low frequencies. So if we're comparing two violins that are reading, this 73 or 75 dB that you see is a weighted average. That's what A means, dB A scale. So it's a weighted average of all of these frequencies that you're seeing. But 80 dB is not necessarily the same as 80 dB. So if you've got 80 dB with a bunch of highs in it, and 80 dB with a bunch of lows in it, your neighbor's going to hear the one with the lows because those low frequencies can push through their walls and the high frequencies cannot. Think when you go to a big music festival and you're standing, a half a mile away from the stage, all you can hear is the bass and the kick, right? Boom, 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 boom. It's because those low frequencies can throw really far and high frequencies don't. It's the same thing when you're talking about your walls of your apartment or the walls of your house if you're trying to practice at night. So just because one violin is at 75 dB and another one's at 75 dB, you really need to see this scale and see the ones with the higher frequency average are actually going to push through a wall a little bit less. So I want you to look at the RTA in the bottom, and you'll see that blue number there. And then across the bottom, we've also got scrolling what are some common household items and maybe how loud those things will be, just so you've got a frame of reference for what you're listening to, okay? I'm going to play this violin, and I'm going to play it fairly quiet. I'm going to play it a little louder, and I'm going to really dig into this thing and see how high we can get, because I want to see how loud I can get. This one won't go quite as loud, like I said. If we had a really nice acoustic violin in here, Rachel Barton Pine can get her violin well up over 100 dB without a whole lot of trouble at all. She's really digging into it. But let's see what this one will do. So if I was digging in, I could get this thing into the 90s. Again, a classically trained violinist on a really loud violin, soloist level violin can get up over 100 dB. So that is what your acoustic can do, and that's why when you're practicing at home, the neighbors are like, yo, we're trying to sleep, dude. And you're like, okay, sorry. So you're thinking, gosh, maybe I should get a silent violin. I should get a Yamaha silent violin. So let's grab a Yamaha silent violin. Here's one right here. This is an SV-255. So same bow. We got the same meter, same distance away. If I really push, I can get that into the mid-70s, about the same as me talking, right? But you'll notice as you're looking at here, but you see where the meat of those sounds are in my voice. And then let's see here. So if you can talk in your apartment, and you're not driving your neighbors crazy with your voice in the 70 dB range, then that's about where this violin is going to be, even if you're really digging in. Most of my practice isn't going to be there, right? I'm not going to be playing that hard. Right, so we're going to be closer to 60, which is quite a bit quieter than me talking. It's actually twice as quiet. It's only half of the volume of me talking, and you've got the extra added benefit that this doesn't have nearly as many low frequencies in it as your voice does. So the sound of this instrument is much less likely to penetrate through walls than your talking does, okay? That's a beautiful thing about an electric violin. So people ask, well, Yamaha says they're the silent violin. What does that mean? Does it mean they're any quieter than any other violin? Let's find out. So let's grab a Stratton violin. Okay, so maybe it's a little bit louder than an SV-250, a few dB. It's not a huge difference. So far, the SV-255 does appear to be one of the quieter of these two instruments anyway. But again, even with the Stratton violin, it is still way, way quieter than an acoustic. All right, let's try another Yamaha. By the numbers, the YEV is the quietest one we've tried yet. Working pretty hard to get into the low 70s on that. All right, let's try another one. Let's try a Glasser. A Glasser is a special case because a Glasser is an acoustic-electric instrument. People often ask us about the Glasser. So I can get this into the upper 80s without a whole lot of trouble. Or if I'm going to be just sort of hanging out. All right, that is a Glasser Acoustic-electric. What else? What else? Oh, I do want to say, we do tell people that most solid body electrics are going to be in a relatively tight window, with the exception of this guy. The bridge violins are quite a bit louder. And because they are hollow, they've got this hollow body. Bridges are going to be a little bit louder, as you guys can see on the numbers there. Okay, good question. NS. Let's grab an NS. So yeah, right in the same range as the rest of them. Missed. So yeah, this is a super, super quiet violin. I had to really work just to get this up to about 70 dB. .3D varies super quiet. Oh, what else? I'm a Viper guy. Let's talk about Vipers. So lots and lots of quiet instruments. You can see as I'm talking, I'm in the 70s, maybe pushing 80. The instrument says you're sort of hanging back. If you're just hanging back and practicing, 50s and 60s aren't hard to achieve. If you're really diving into these things, you can get 70, maybe a little higher. Let's pick up a Jordan since there's one laying here. If you got a Jordan laying around, you should definitely pick it up. Those are the numbers on the Jordan. You guys can all see for yourselves. What else? What else do we want to try? Let's try an Aurora. So, I'm not always lazy. I'm just mostly lazy. Let's throw a shoulder rest on this. Pretty much all in the same range is where we're finding these, with the exception of the bridge. Yeah, we're finding that these are all going to be in the same range. So when people ask, like, how loud is an electric, the answer is not very. They're not very loud. Sort of as we see scrolling across the bottom now, more like an electric toothbrush, about the volume of an electric toothbrush. The bottom line is most solid body violins are about in the same range. They're pretty quiet. Acoustic violins are going to be the loudest. Acoustic electrics are going to be down a little bit. The Glass or violin is a little bit quieter than some of the others because the carbon fiber doesn't push quite as hard. And then bridge violins, and then pretty much the rest of the solid body electrics are way, way, way quieter. And remember, a 10 dB difference is half. So if something is 65 dB and something is 55 dB, the 65 is twice as loud as 55. It'll be a doubling in perceived volume.